People are applying for jobs. They need to have a contact that works at a company. And I'm in a networking group that meets once a week, and 7 or 8 times out of 10, they'll say a company, and I look, and boom, I have a contact. So I'm able to make the intro with the hope that they might be able to help this person in advancing their resume or getting their resume application in front of the right individuals.
Hey, this is Mike from Intro Stars, and today I'm very excited to bring you a brand new episode of the Super Connectors podcast with a very, very special guest, the ultimate queen of networking in New York City, Nancie. Hey, Nancie.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
So good to see you. So I'm the king of networking in London. I've been to 1,000 networking events, but you're way past that in New York City. So tell me about your networking journey. How did you start going to networking events and going to so many of them and really enjoying it?
I have, I think, kind of an unusual story, or maybe not, but it was out of necessity. Back a couple of years ago, quite a few years ago, I was in a role where it was myself, my colleague who was my boss, and just 2 other people, and it was a very lonely existence. And at that time, I took the initiative to start joining professional groups. And one of them was a group, I'm in healthcare, public relations, and communications. One of them was a group predominantly of hospital, PR, marketing, fundraising folks.
Yep.
And I started to build my network very quickly. And one thing led to another. And I really enjoyed meeting people in similar field to what I was doing.
Yep.
So that's really how it started. And then it took off from there. And I joined other groups. I became very active in that group, rising to be president 3 times of that organization. And I do enjoy putting people together and knowing that if I need someone at a certain company, let's say, for a question or for guidance, I'm able to tap into that for myself.
Yeah.
First off, but then so happy always to have the ability to help introduce others.
Absolutely. So when you start to go to lots of networking events, as you have, automatically you start to connect the dots, and you want to connect people who are relevant to each other, who would enjoy each other's conversation company. And so how did you slowly become a super connector? Did you actually use that term yourself? Did other people call you a super connector?
Yeah, so as I said, I started in a job where it was a very small office, and coincidentally, after being at a hospital that folded, sadly, in New York City, in Bedpan Alley, I wound up joining a cancer hospital, again in a remote position. And I should have explained, the first job was also, it was the AMA, headquarters was Chicago, I was in New York, and that's why it was so limited in the folks.
Yep.
And this other job was for a cancer center. And similarly, my colleagues were fundraisers. They eventually shut down the fundraising office, and I was left by my lonesome. And I was like, I want to meet other people doing healthcare PR, working at hospitals or working in cancer. So it was sort of, my existence led itself to want to be around more people professionally. Besides, socially you have your friends. Yeah. And obviously we know very often your professional contacts do become your friends.
Of course. And so that's why we both enjoy networking so much.
Yeah.
To feel surrounded by like-minded people, make more connections, more friends, business connections, and bring it all together by introducing people to each other.
Exactly.
Right? And so tell me more about the types of introductions you make today on a day-to-day basis. Who are the typical types of people you connect on a regular basis?
So one of the areas I do quite a bit of connecting is in, the job search market. There's a lot of people, and that's been the case for a long time. Sadly, it's even worse now than it ever was, but people are applying for jobs. They need to have a contact that works at a company. And I'm in a networking group that meets once a week, and 9 times out of 10, or maybe that's a little high, 7 or 8 times out of 10, they'll say MasterCard or Pfizer or Macy's. It doesn't have to be healthcare.
Yeah.
They'll say a company, and I look, and boom, I have a contact. So I'm able to make the intro with the hope that they might be able to help this person in advancing their resume or getting their resume application in front of the right individuals. So I do quite a bit of that.
Yep.
And then I go to a lot of different events, and through meeting people at events, I may think of things that would be helpful to them. I've become very active in cancer patient advocacy, and now I belong to all these advocacy groups. And I'm meeting people. I spoke to a woman yesterday, and she's in the investment world, and I was able to share with her other groups that I've gone to that might be beneficial to her.
Yeah, so it's not just about connecting people, but it's also connecting communities
Correct.
and groups
Exactly.
and introducing them to relevant people.
Exactly.
And so it's people, information, communities, connecting all these things together, right?
Right.
And that's where we get joy from connecting.
Absolutely.
So tell me, how do you monetize? It's obviously complicated when you're trying to truly help people and be a genuine purpose-driven connector and networker, building relationships and friendships. But at the end of the day, you still need to pay your bills. You need to monetize somehow.
Right.
So how do you walk that fine line yourself?
So it's
Nancie?
very interesting. I would say that's the million-dollar question. I'm not sure I really have figured it out, but
Yeah.
I realize now better what you were referring to, because as it happens, someone I met at an event introduced me to an event, which I attended,
Yeah.
and there was a gentleman there who introduced me to a gentleman in healthcare who's doing something novel with a patient portal and so forth. And we chatted, and I don't know if that's really the answer to your question, but he wants me to help him
Yeah.
in sponsorships, finding opportunities at, let's say, pharmaceutical companies. And I do have quite a Rolodex. I'm aging myself, but I have quite a, quite a nice LinkedIn connections of folks in lots of different industries. Obviously, I work in pharma, so, and I don't see it as being, oh gosh, now I'm like selling something. It's offering a service that I think would be beneficial
Correct.
to them. So I think that sort of answers.
Yeah, it's really about fair compensation for you putting the time, effort, and energy to make
Right.
that connection happen. And so if you introduce a sponsor to an event organizer, for example, if a deal comes out of it, $100,000 deal or whatever it is, it just makes sense that you should get a fair compensation for that.
Exactly.
So have you ever done that before? You get paid a referral commission or introduction fee? Is that have ever been in your mindset? Or?
No, but ironically, there have been a few of these situations that have arisen very recently. So
Yeah.
there's another opportunity that's presented itself. And I do get a little, not squirmish, but I do get a little concerned, how it would appear. But then I stop and I say, no, I've worked my whole life,
Yeah.
in my career and meeting lots of different people from all walks of life, and it can benefit someone else. So.
And again, you're not doing it for the money. The
Right.
money is just a compensation after the fact.
Exactly.
You're doing it to truly help people.
Right.
And you actually want to bring value to people you connect, right?
Exactly.
And that's the same for all super connectors. We're not doing it for the money. We're doing it to
Right.
help people. But of course, you need to compensate people fairly for their effort. And you spend 20, 30 years of a career building those networks.
Right.
So it makes sense. So tell me, do you use any kind of tool to track introductions, to track people you meet at networking events? Do you have any kind of system for
No.
that?
Sorry, that's not the right answer.
It is. Every answer is right.
Yeah,
Right? Whatever works for you.
I really don't. That's why I believe when you connect with people on LinkedIn, it's so important to personalize the invitation
Yep.
so that you know the reference of where you met them.
Of course.
Because even now, I'll go back and look, and I'm connected to Joe Schmo, and I'm like, where did we meet?
Yep.
But it makes it so much easier if you have that context. So, LinkedIn is sort of where I keep track of relationships. I
Of
mean,
course.
it's the best place because I like to connect with people, but I also want to know, QR codes are great, but I still think you got to use that extra step to make sure it's like documented.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is great. I use it as my own CRM system for everyone I've met, just like yourself. But then one layer beyond that is to track introductions, specific introductions you've made and received. Have you ever had a system for that? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, Gmail. I'm a little bit on the fly
Sure.
kind of person. And it worked. I can search my emails and see who I introduced them to or when that was. So it works.
So do you have any words of advice for young people who are starting their career and want to become super networkers like yourself or super connectors? Do you have any advice for them?
I do. It's go to events, be visible, be out there. I'm training my sons. I have two boys, 19 and 28. I have been successful, I think, with my older son. I'm still working on the younger one. They watch me. My son was in town. I brought him to 3 networking events in November.
Fantastic.
And I did a post about it on LinkedIn, and it was very, very well received. Yeah, we got to educate the young how to get off their bloody phones, you know, and staring at social media and really interacting with people.
Absolutely, it's a superpower. If you're comfortable walking in a room full of strangers, building rapport and relationships, and then introducing people to each other afterwards, that is a superpower.
Right, exactly.
And I hope you and me can inspire, the next generation.
Yes, I hope so.
That would be amazing. And so tell me, what are you working on this year, which is really dear to your heart, and where can people follow you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is probably the best place. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, but I do a lot on LinkedIn. I like sharing information about important events, whether they're career-related or health-related. I mentioned I'm a cancer patient advocate, so that is something that I'm passionate about now and working quite a bit on to help other people get information they need and to share my personal journey as a cancer patient thriver, I like to say, survivor and thriver. So that's really what I'm most passionate about these days.
Cool, well, fabulous. I'm sure you'll inspire lots of people to follow your footsteps. Hopefully your 2 sons will be the next generation of super connectors out there. And thank you so much for sharing your story, your wisdom, and I really enjoy our conversation.
Thank you, me too.
Thank you so much, Nancie.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks.